Friends, today I'd like to address a sort of strange topic. It's atheism. And I'd like to begin by telling a story that Swami Kriyananda used to tell sometimes. Not very often, but a few times I remember hearing him tell this. He was taking a, a young man home, giving him a ride in the car. It may have been at Ananda Village. He did never specified exactly where it was. And the boy was lamenting and telling him that he didn't believe in God, and he was, sort of upset with the world. He was kind of down. And they picked up a girl who was around his same age. They were both teenagers, maybe 15, 16 years old. And she was upset with the world for a different reason. Or someone had, some boyfriend had dropped her and left her high and dry, and she was not happy about it. And she started off on that, and she was the first one to be dropped off. And the culmination of her little monologue was that she didn't believe in love. Never mind that she was 15 years old, and as life goes along, we have a few hard knocks along the way, and we learn a few things. But anyway, that was her conclusion: was she didn't believe in love. And after she was gone, the boy turned to Swamiji and said, "Gosh, can you imagine anyone who doesn't believe in love?" And Swami turned to him and said, "And you call yourself an atheist?" So that was a very interesting take on it to me. He also told another story about how during a question and answer session in Australia, someone approached him because, of course, in his talk, he had been weaving in spiritual themes and no doubt using the word God, at least occasionally. And someone approached him afterwards and said, with the appropriate Australian accent, which I will not try to duplicate at this point because I would probably make a hash of it, said, "How can you define God in such a way as to be meaningful to me, who am an atheist?" And Swamiji paused and he said, "Why don't you think of God as your own highest potential?" And the man said, "I think I could live with that." So that sort of sums up Swami Kriyananda's perspective on it. Just today I was reading an article, part of the reason I had actually been thinking of this topic earlier because it's come up a number of times recently in conversations with people and in the news. It's sort of, I think virus, pandemic, atheism, it's sort of like, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. People just sort of get going on this thing, and then it's just like, oh, well, there can't be a God, it's just, this place is a mess, and here we all are, we're all stuck, and etc. So, but just today I was reading an article in which a apparently well-known Christian singer came out saying that he's atheist, just literally just today, May 27th. And I thought, boy, here we go again. It's atheism as defined, according to me now. I've never talked with any of these people. And I would actually enjoy, I would singularly enjoy a real conversation, not an argument, but just a discussion of what is it that defines atheism? Because according to me, atheism is actually just another religion. It's just another, seems to me to be a religion of denial rather than a religion of affirmation. But nevertheless, it has all of those trappings to it, according to me. I could be wrong. There may be as many flavors of atheism as there are atheists out there, for all I know. It's not something that I've delved deeply into. But actually, I had an interesting interaction with Swami Kriyananda one time on this subject. because I used to follow articles about different trends of thought, different philosophical subjects, and I read an article by someone who purported to have presented this on various atheist forums. I didn't even know such things existed at the time, and I've never gone looking for one, but evidently people discuss their atheism somewhere out there on the internet. And he said no one had ever been able to disprove him on this, and so he sort of had this as his way of saying atheism doesn't work. It doesn't stand by its own on its own rules. And his point was DNA is a code. Everyone agrees that DNA is a code. It's a code for, this little strand. It's a code of instructions, essentially. And so his line of reasoning was this. He said, if you atheists out there of the world, if you can find me another naturally occurring code that has no author, nobody, codes have to sort of, by definition, somebody had to write the code. Some intelligence had to organize it in order to do what it's doing. It didn't just fall out of the sky. This is one of the classic arguments. If you took a bunch of parts and threw them up in the air and they came down as a 747, in theory that could be possible. Not really. How many times would you have to throw the parts up in the air before they came down as a fully functional airliner? Doesn't seem real likely. But anyway, so he presented this on atheist forums, and they tried all sorts of different angles, and nobody could ever satisfy him that they had come up with another naturally occurring code that had no author, which to him meant that the DNA that basically codes our existence, our physical existence, the intelligence in our body works through that code in many, many ways, had to have been written by some kind of author. And to him, that author is God. Well, my question in all of this, and this is something that I would ask atheists, is just simply, I would sort of pick it up going back to Swami. To finish the thought about Swamiji. So I told Swami this story, and he said, "Oh, well, that's interesting. As a proof of God, essentially, because in the Indian scriptures there is a phrase that is sort of loosely translated as God is not provable. You can't prove God's existence. One of the ways we've heard this described is, for those who believe, no explanation is necessary. For those who do not believe, no explanation is possible." Well, that doesn't really satisfy a kind of scientific view of the thing. But anyway, it's one way of looking at it. So Swami took that in and then later in the day, as these things sometimes go, that's this little proof, the clever proof of the man talking about DNA rattled around in his mind a little while. And then later in the day, he came back and he said, that is clever, but it's not going to change anyone's mind because it doesn't satisfy the heart. We can say, yes, because you can't come up with another code, therefore DNA must have been written by some intelligence. Yeah, you can sort of make that argument. Nobody's going to be convinced by that. They have to feel that in their heart. So going back to Swami's earlier thought of saying to the atheist in Australia, think of God as your own highest potential, that's what I would put toward an atheist having a discussion. Because to me, what atheists are saying is, I reject the God that I've been presented with so far in my life. I don't believe in that God, the way that one, the one I used to believe in, the church I grew up in, the whatever, somebody else's. I don't believe in that flavor of God that somebody else, passionately, devotionally worships. It doesn't resonate. That's basically what I hear atheists saying. I don't believe in religion. Okay, well, that's a very different topic. Religion can organized religion can get us into all kinds of trouble. And so if we think of it as I am reaching towards something, think of what motivates a child to get up in the morning. What motivates a scientist to keep reaching for that understanding, that explanation, that theory that actually is provable in the world? It's curiosity. It's I have not fully understood. I have not fully achieved the potential that I'm reaching for. And to me, that's a beautiful description of God. Maybe not one that people can get around devotionally, aspire to devotionally, but everyone aspires to something. Swami turning to the boy saying, and you call yourself an atheist, just because the boy had said, how can anybody not believe in love? Well, it's to me, being an atheist is like saying, I don't believe in anything, including I don't even believe in myself. I don't even believe that I exist. Well, I mean, self-evidently you exist if you're asking the question. So we have to find in ourselves the impetus to say, what is my own highest potential? I have often thought that heaven is defined by the limits of our imagination. So whatever we think heaven is going to be, or it's going to look like, the afterlife, beyond this body, beyond the definitions that we work with in this world, in this life, with these circumstances, etc. What consciousness do we go to? We go to the consciousness that we've made. So I would suggest that we always look at our highest potential as something yet beyond, something yet to reach up toward. Because in that way, we just keep going, and there's never an end to it. I recently saw a lovely little video, just a couple minutes, of a woman in England, 105 years old, still driving her car, one of just a handful of people who have a driver's license at age 105. She said she took up yoga, she pronounced it yoga in her 90s. And she's doing yoga every day, and someone asked her, so, what's your view on life? And she just simply said, it gets better every day. And I thought, what a lovely, wonderful thing. What a perfectly beautiful point of view to have. At age 105, life is getting better every day. We're reaching towards something new, some new challenge, some new growth. Let's find that in our lives. Whatever religion we define ourselves by, whatever name we, stick up on the wall and say, okay, I'm that. Let's aspire higher, deeper, for more wisdom, for more light, for more joy. Those things are eternal, and we can take them with us wherever we go.